There is a moment that happened millions of times across human prehistory that nobody recorded and almost nobody thinks about. A small group of early humans, no claws, no venom, no shell, no meaningful speed advantage over anything that wanted to eat them, settling in for the night in a landscape that contained lions, leopards, hyenas, cave bears, giant short-faced bears, saber-toothed cats, and crocodiles. The darkness arriving, the sounds beginning. And somehow, every single one of your ancestors survived that night. Not because they were stronger than what was out there, not because the predators weren't real or weren't dangerous, but because across millions of years of pressure, the human lineage developed a set of strategies so effective that a physically unremarkable primate eventually became the creature that every other creature learned to fear. This is how they did it. The first and most important survival technology was not fire. It was not tools. It was something that required no physical object at all. It was the group. Early humans were not solitary creatures who occasionally gathered. They were deeply, structurally social animals whose survival was contingent on maintaining group cohesion at almost all times. A human alone in the African savanna was vulnerable in ways that are difficult to overstate. A human in a group of 15 or 20 was a completely different proposition for any predator evaluating risk and reward. Numbers did several things simultaneously. They multiplied the number of eyes watching for threat. They amplified the alarm response. One person detecting a predator could alert everyone instantly. They created the possibility of coordinated defense. A group of humans making noise, throwing objects, and advancing together toward a predator was a threat that most large carnivores had learned, over time, to avoid. And they provided redundancy. The injury or death of one member did not end the group's capacity to function and survive. The mathematics of predation are simple. A predator attacks when the probability of a successful kill exceeds the probability of injury to itself. Most large predators are surprisingly cautious about risking injury. A broken leg or a torn muscle in a wild environment is often a death sentence. A group of humans that fought back, made noise, and refused to scatter significantly reduced the probability of a clean kill and increased the probability of injury to the attacker. For most predators, most of the time, that calculation produced the same result. Move on. Find easier prey. Fire changed everything. The controlled use of fire, which evidence now places at around 1 million years ago or earlier, gave early humans something no prey animal in the history of the planet had ever possessed. A tool that produced the one thing almost every large predator instinctively avoided. Not the heat, not the light, the smell, the unpredictability, the sound. Fire represented danger in a category that predators had no evolved behavior to engage with. They could not fight it. They could not intimidate it. They could not learn that this particular fire was harmless. The response to fire was categorical avoidance, and that avoidance extended to anything near the fire. A camp with a maintained fire at night was not perfectly safe, but it was categorically safer than any alternative available. The range of predators willing to approach an active fire was dramatically smaller than the range willing to approach darkness, and the ones that might still approach, the most desperate, the most bold, would be doing so into the light, visible to the humans watching, in a situation where the humans had time to respond. Sleep cycles adapted around this reality. Research on modern hunter-gatherer groups suggests that prehistoric camps did not sleep all at once. Different individuals were awake at different times through the night, not through formal scheduling, but through the natural variation in human sleep patterns. Someone was almost always awake, tending the fire, listening, watching. The camp as a whole maintained a level of vigilance that no individual could sustain alone. Positioning mattered enormously. Early humans showed a consistent preference for sheltered locations that reduced the number of directions from which a threat could approach. Rock shelters and cave overhangs were prized not primarily for protection from weather, though they provided that too, but because they allowed a group to place its back against something solid. A group sleeping against a cliff face with a fire at the entrance could only be approached from one direction. The fire covered that direction. The geometry of the situation transformed a vulnerable group into something much harder to attack. Caves offered similar advantages, but came with complications. The most desirable caves, dry, sheltered, with good sight lines, were often already occupied by the animals that had used them longest. Cave bears, leopards who used elevated positions to cache their kills, hyenas whose bone-crushing abilities made them formidable competitors for any enclosed space. Acquiring and holding a cave required driving out its current occupants, which early humans accomplished through fire, noise, coordinated group effort, and the patience to wait out animals that eventually abandoned locations that had become too consistently uncomfortable. Trees provided another solution, particularly in the early hominin period before fully upright posture made prolonged climbing less practical. Many large African predators do not climb effectively. A group that could sleep elevated, in the fork of a large tree on a rocky outcrop, reduced the number of predators that could reach them while they slept. The trade-off was comfort and the difficulty of responding quickly to threats from below. But for certain environments and certain periods, elevation was among the most reliable defenses available. Knowledge was perhaps the most powerful survival tool of all. Early humans developed extraordinarily detailed understanding of the predators they shared landscapes with, their hunting patterns, their territorial ranges, the times of day they were most active, the signs of their recent presence, the sounds that indicated their proximity. This knowledge was not individual, it was collective, accumulated across generations, refined continuously by experience, and transmitted to children from the earliest age. A group that knew which areas lions used at dusk, which waterholes crocodiles patrolled, which rocky outcrops leopards favored for cached kills, could navigate a dangerous landscape not through strength, but through information. They could time their movements. They could choose routes. They could read signs, tracks, disturbed vegetation, the alarm calls of other species that gave them advance warning of predator proximity. Other animals were part of this information network. Birds that alarm called at predator presence. Baboons that were reliable indicators of leopard activity because of their intense anti-predator vigilance. Antelope that moved in ways that signaled the presence of lions in particular directions. Early humans learned to read these signals the way a modern person reads a weather forecast. Imperfect information that was nonetheless dramatically better than nothing, and that allowed behavioral adjustment before the threat arrived. When confronted directly, early humans did not always flee. There is substantial evidence that early human groups actively defended themselves and even went on the offensive against predators that threatened them. Coordinated mobbing, the group advancing together toward a predator with noise and thrown objects, is a behavior documented in modern hunter-gatherer groups and believed to be extremely ancient. It works because it reverses the calculus of risk. The predator suddenly finds itself the target of multiple aggressors, without the predictable flight response it relies on to guide its attack. Confusion, risk of injury, and the presence of multiple threats simultaneously is enough to cause most predators to abandon the encounter. And over thousands of generations, something additional happened. The predators learned, not individually, but collectively, across populations and generations. The lions that hunted near early human groups experienced higher rates of injury from coordinated defense. The leopards that attempted to take humans experienced the coordinated response that humans delivered, the natural selection pressure that this created. Favoring predators that avoided human groups gradually shifted the behavior of large carnivores in areas of consistent human presence toward the wariness that we observe in wildlife today. The humans were not just surviving the predators. They were, over deep time, training them.